I am not where I usually am in Southern California. I'm here in Minnesota. It is cold. I am wet, but I'm here for a purpose. Minnesota right now is a test case for what the government is able to get away with. ICE activity has increased in recent weeks, not just with continued deportations and raids of communities, but also community surveillance and even the silencing of elected officials who are here to protect their community. We are going to witness one of the largest economic general strikes tomorrow in the past century in Minneapolis. And this really is a test case to see how community is able to fight back against authoritarian grabs for power. We want to make sure that tomorrow is not symbolic. This is material, this is deliberate, and we are demonstrating and proving to the country that if you fight back, if you get together, you can cause disruption and you can show that authoritarians cannot just do whatever they want. I'll be gathering footage from the demonstrations later in the downtown Minneapolis region. There's projected to be thousands of people that are not going to their jobs, not going to school, just to show the community that is here in the Twin Cities area. We'll be marching from US Bank Stadium to the Target Center. And this really is a demonstration of how sick and tired people are of this continued ICE presence. We've demanded, or Minnesota has demanded, that ICE leaves their communities. And if those demands are not held, normal politics cannot just be followed as usual. This is not business as usual. This is continued terror. I have walked by hundreds of houses on my way to where I'm staying today, and I've seen so many signs of ICE get out of our neighborhoods. You have the rights to refuse service to anybody. The community is in lockstep. They understand what needs to be done, and it really has to be coordinated solidarity to prove support for one another. Big reason why this is happening in Minnesota is an aggressive federal ICE escalation. We know that ICE has expanded their enforcement operations in the Twin Cities. This is raids, detentions, visible presence in migrant communities, and even US citizens are being brutalized both through detention and, as we saw with Renee Good, just continued police brutality. This is not subtle. This is specifically targeted towards blue cities. And with Minnesota being a progressive haven for decades, if not centuries, this was a clear example of specific political escalation. Minnesota has always been a community that's organized, it's not individualized. There's been some of the strongest union density in this state out of the entire nation. There's also a lot of deep faith based organizing. Many churches have been calling for people to get out into the street to demonstrate solidarity for their neighbors. And since 2020, with the BLM protests that started here in Minneapolis, we haven't really seen any slow in that momentum. People have been ready to stand up for one another. They've been ready to stand up against the state violence that continues to happen here in Minnesota. And this all matters because mass action doesn't just come from anger alone. It really comes from people's capacity and their ability to show solidarity for their loved ones. This really is a flashpoint moment. After Renee Good was brutally killed by an ICE agent in the street with zero accountability, the federal government immediately deemed her to be a domestic terrorist without evidence. This was not after investigation took place. This is what Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security and known dog killer, just said to the public. And after that murder, the question has really shifted from how do we protest to how do we impose costs? It's no longer that getting out and marching is going to be enough. People have been doing that here in Minneapolis day after day since Renee Good's killing, and even before that, just with the increased ICE activity. And since this increased ICE activity, the question has really moved from how do we protest to how do we show what our demands are to those in positions of power. Clearly, if us marching, if us waving signs is not doing enough to enact change, how can we hit them where it hurts? And organizers recognize the power of labor. It really is our economic output. It is our ability to continue to push profits to those that are in high institutions of power. And if we have something like an economic blackout, that is very clear language. There's no ambiguity there. A general strike style action is how we demonstrate the real power that working class people have at making sure that the system runs properly. This is not a symbolic boycott. This is not just a 1 hour march. It's not a small activity people are doing. This is workers that are staying home from work. This is students not going to school, consumers not spending their money, small businesses voluntarily closing down. It really is a simple message. If our money and labor is what continues to make the system function, then withdrawing both becomes the only leverage that we have. It's not radical theory. This is what workers have done for centuries. When we demand more from those in positions of power, when we collectivize, we are much stronger than we are individualized by ourselves shouting into the abyss. The main power of momentum for this action has specifically been the organizing ability of local union chapters, worker centers, immigrant led community organizations, faith coalitions, and even small business networks. This matters because it really changes the risk profile. It is no longer just those that are the most vulnerable to these ICE detentions. It really is the community at large. When labor, when faith, when commerce all align together, you get something different. This is employers that are negotiating quietly. This is politicians that are watching economic indicators, the media forced to cover the impact, not just the symbolic activity of people who are waving signs in the air. This is organizing. This is not just outrage. This article from Governing says that Minnesota braces for statewide economic strike over ICE enforcement. A statewide strike aims to halt normal economic activity in response to recent enforcement actions in a fatal shooting. Businesses and stores across the metro area have announced plans to be closed on Friday. Among them is Mississippi Market Co-op, which has 3 stores in St. Paul, joining forces with 2 Wedge community co-ops in Minneapolis, Eastside Food Co-op in Minneapolis, the Seward Community Co-op locations in Minneapolis, and River Market Co-op in Stillwater. As a cooperative, we believe our shared labor, time, and economic participation are powerful tools, Mississippi market officials wrote in a statement shared on social media. This coordinated statewide pause reflects our commitment to democratic action, mutual responsibility, and concern for our communities. Acting together is one way we live our cooperative values. We stand with those calling for justice and demand ICE leave Minnesota now. While the work stoppage will be hard on small businesses, business owners recognize that this is an emergency, said Kate Haviland, a spokeswoman for Indivisible Twin Cities. We have to stop ICE. This is an emergency and we have to deal with it. Organizers of the economic strike are particularly calling on officials at Target, Home Depot, Enterprise, Hilton, and Delta Airlines to speak out and demand ICE leave Minnesota, according to Haviland. 2 employees who were working at the Target in Richfield were arrested inside the store by ICE agents. Both young men were U.S. citizens, she said, and Target officials did not intervene. Target and other businesses could post signs saying ICE is not allowed in unless they have a signed warrant, Haviland said. There is something businesses can do to protect their workers and to protect their customers because when you are letting ICE wander into your store or hang out or stage in your parking lot, you are not protecting your staff and you're not protecting your customers. And that doesn't seem like good business sense. Target officials did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So we're clearly seeing what the prime motivation is here. It is about community protection. Businesses know that there's going to be an economic hit here. They know that they're going to lose profits. A lot of these businesses operate on slim margins to where this can be very heavy impact on their long-term stability. But they know that this is important. They have to be able to show not only solidarity with their communities, but they also want to add to this collective framework. It is very difficult if one business goes under, but if all businesses partner together and they show this force in unity, that is the power that collective action has. And when we're seeing these large businesses who claim to be staples of these communities, Target always likes to brag about how many jobs it brings to the Minneapolis area. Who gives a fuck if you're bringing jobs if you're not protecting the people that work in your business? If you're not protecting the customers who trust you to deliver their necessary goods. I didn't come to Minneapolis because it's a great vacation to come in negative 10-degree weather. I came here because this is where the strategy is changing. If this works, even partially, it becomes a blueprint for the rest of the country on how we can resist ICE escalation, how we can continue labor actions, coordinated economic pressure in order to make demands heard. This is why it is so important that we have test case of communities who are willing to put their economic stability on the line to protect their fellow community members. I've seen so many right wingers say that protests like these are pointless because all you're doing is hurting your own community's economy. This is the only thing that works. You can't just allow these actions to continue and pretend like you can go about your day business as usual when you're seeing people get murdered in the street and then it being justified by the president of the United States 30 minutes later. It is not sustainable. You cannot do this. People cannot go about their everyday life. You can't just go to work and pretend like everything's fine at home. You have to demonstrate the only thing that you're able to do as a worker, which is collectivize yourself with other workers in solidarity. And when we see people in positions of power who claim to have our best interests at heart, continue to vote for more Department of Homeland Security funding, like 7 Democrats who did today in Congress, this is when the community needs to step up. It's important that we recognize who those 7 are. Tom Suozzi from New York, Representative Henry COURIER from Texas, Don Davis, Laura Gillen, Jared Golden, Vicente Gonzalez, Marie Glusenkamp Perez from Washington. All 7 of these people said, you know what, all of the destruction that we're seeing in these communities that's committed by ICE, all of the state sponsored violence and terror as people are getting ripped from their homes or their workplaces, we actually need more funding for that. Bullshit. Fuck that. It is insane for me to see somebody be a Democrat say that we are the opposition party when 74% of your party wants ICE abolished, not funding cut, abolished. 74% of Democrats in the entire country have polled that they want ICE gone. Why the fuck are you voting for more funding to DHS? It makes absolutely no sense. This article from Truth Out really shows who most of the organizing forces are. Some of Minnesota's largest labor unions are leading the way, including Minneapolis Federation of Educators, SEIU 26, and Unite Here Local 17. This has led to some labeling the upcoming day of action a general strike, with others referring to it as an economic blackout. This would be the first general strike in Minnesota since 1934, when the Teamsters set off a months long work stoppage in the state. Simon Elliott, an organizer for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, one of the organizations that have signed onto the call, said this is the clearest and most powerful way we can send a message both to the Trump administration and to immigrant members of our community. A list of businesses that have pledged to close down for the day is circulating online, with more joining by the hour. Frustration with the state and city governments is growing at the grassroots level. Words coming from whether it's our mayor or the governor right now are ringing hollow to what's happening in the communities and the streets, Gomez stressed. Economic disruption is the only option, according to organizers who spoke with Truth Out. Elliot, who has been going door to door on Minneapolis' south side, organizing businesses around the upcoming day of action for PSL, said when our volunteers walk in with flyers that say ICE out of Minnesota, January 23rd, statewide shutdown, people are so excited. Business owners say, great, I'll put up 4 flyers. The January 23rd day of action will be an opportunity for Minnesota residents to show off their collective labor and purchasing power as they demand their corporations with headquarters in Minnesota, including United Health Group, Target, and Best Buy, use their influence to put an end to ICE's occupation of the Twin Cities. Organizers are also demanding that Target and Home Depot, which have been documented being used as staging grounds and parking lots for ICE agents, become Fourth Amendment businesses and refuse to allow federal immigration authorities to use their properties to prepare for or conduct operations. We're going to win this because there are thousands and thousands of us who are united against this, and there are only so many federal agents, Stevenson concluded. Again, this really is the power of community. There are so much more of us who care about our communities, who don't want to see federal agents acting with impunity, who want to hold our government accountable and want things being done the legal way. We know that ICE agents are not operating within their legal capacity. They are killing people and getting away with it with zero accountability. This is unacceptable in any civilized nation, and we all need to stand up against this. I'm really excited to see what happens today in Minnesota because it really is the blueprint for how the rest of the country should operate when it comes to this type of resistance. We need to get out there, we need to mobilize, and we need as many numbers as we can to show that we will not stand for an authoritarian crackdown on our civil rights.